Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Life in Bomb City. I'm Aaron Favor.
And I'm Dr. Beth Rodriguez.
And we are recording live here in the Social and Behavioral Sciences Department at Amarillo College. Here we are. It's good to be back.
It is. It's been a bit. We were sitting here like, God, it's been a while, but it just got real busy all of a sudden. And I think that, everything has its place, has its season. So now that's done and we're moving on. And I'm glad to be back in here, coming up with a new podcast for today.
Yeah, 100%. There are so many different things that have happened since October. I think the last time we recorded in early October, we were about to have the new Sopranos come out. It was the prequel with mixed reviews. And now here we are in the new year, post family get-togethers at Thanksgiving and again at Christmas and
the new year.
Yeah, right.
And my birthday.
Right. And your birthday.
Yeah, 1 year older.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, those are all such massive events. So recording an episode in between them, we could have done it. But then my family got COVID right after Thanksgiving, and that took us out of the ball game for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We had, I don't know how many other things going on. I think we had one planned though for right after Thanksgiving that we had to cancel.
We were going to do something, but then you guys got sick, and then we just got really busy with a whole bunch of stuff with the ending of the semester and starting new things and presenting new, like our new, network that we're working with, our new site, the Blackboard. And, I was getting all this new information, and I get to hire somebody. So psychologists out there.
Hey, congratulations.
I'm excited about that.
That's a big deal considering everything that's been going on and the growth of, just the demand of our classes and our coursework, the fact that so many students, they're required to take a class, and then psychology has its own program.
Right. We do. We have our own major. So, we did, I guess, Esolve. I don't know what to say the word, but for social work, because we did not have a full-time social work employee faculty member on campus. We just had a part-time, and you can't have a program with a part-time or an adjunct instructor. So now it is psychology with the emphasis in social work. So
I see.
It's been nice. I'm excited. It's I don't know, after you've been somewhere for 10 years, you keep every year, every time you start a new 8 weeks, it's like we have to have some sort of pep rally to get us excited. And I don't know if I need that right now. I'm excited to see who my students are, what they have coming to the table, and because it's always something new. I mean, I think maybe we should do a podcast of like our craziest stories.
Sure.
Because, man, we've had some crazy things that have happened, not only to us, but to our students that then respond to us. And I just think that, this is 2022, which is that number in itself is just like, what? But I think, I'm just excited to see what happens, what this year has to hold. And I'm hoping that it doesn't have some of the things from the past. But there's some things I do. So, I'm excited to see what happens.
Right. 2022 kind of came upon us very quickly. I don't really remember celebrating anything about 2021. I remember 2020, but not for the reasons that we would think. I just remember how long of a year it was, and that was what stood out about 2020 was how long it was. But then 2021 just kind of flew by and was eclipsed in the shadow of the long year that we had in 2020, which was, just changing expectations over and over and over again, which, created, all kinds of new things. And of course, there were just the media cycles were just crazy. And now we've kind of learned to roll with the punches a little bit.
Hopefully. I mean, you're absolutely correct. Like 2020 seemed forever. 2021 flew. And so, we'll see what happens here. It's crazy. It just is. It's crazy. My kids are getting big, and every year, and I remember my parents saying, I think we've said this before on our podcast, but everybody always says, oh, just wait, time goes so fast. And you're like, okay. But I mean, every year it's like, God, you're so right. Like everything goes so fast.
It does. That's the essence of time. Not really time travel, maybe the way we would consider it in the old days with Marty McFly.
Right.
But time travel, as we get older, time really does travel a little bit faster. And maybe that relativity,
absolutely,
in terms of our age, changes things. But I don't know, our kids are, getting older. Kelly and I were just talking the other day about how much they're growing. One of them just started crawling, and it seems like such a small thing, but to get to witness it again is just like witnessing it the first time. And other one is almost 6 years old. He's growing up right now. We're working on learning how to read, doing a good job at it. So I get to spend an incredible amount of time each night reading with him and to him. And I'm just kind of trying to savor that time because it won't always be that way. And I'm looking forward to having the conversations in the future, but I'm much more satisfied just being able to be present with him during the moments that I can be.
Absolutely. Yes. I know. I was talking the other day, and it was pretty funny because I had my daughter's friends. We went to a movie. I took him to a movie, and afterwards, I had to go take my sons to different places, had to pick somebody up, and then I took them to do something. And then, it was just like running everywhere. So I take one of the little girls home, and she said, Miss Beth, thank you so much for just driving us everywhere. So my mom wouldn't do that. And the other friend said, yeah, she's kind of like an Uber driver. She goes, my mom wouldn't do it either. And the truth is right now that is my, I'm just it's really, my kids are in that season of friends and doing things and going places. And I don't, you don't want them to always be gone, and I don't want to have to take them everywhere. But at the same time, I don't want them to miss out on these opportunities to get to do that with their friends. And at the same token, I'm really excited though, because my oldest is 15, he'll be 16 this summer. So we've been doing a lot of driving with him, and I keep maybe I should just let him drive, because I get really sick of having to pick everybody up. And, mid-dinner, that's what happened last night is I made dinner. I had green beans and mashed potatoes and mac and cheese for the kids because they don't eat everything. And then rotisserie chicken. And I was like, yeah, everything's warm. I'm on the table. I'm about to eat. And then my oldest son calls and says, yeah, so-and-so can't bring me home. Can you come get me? And I was like, I seriously had my plate on the table. And I was like, yeah, I got it. I don't have a choice. That's my kid. I got to go get my kid. So I get up and go, and that's the season I'm in, is that the constant going. We don't stop. And my husband and I are trying to schedule our time, but also scheduling all the kids' stuff in there too. And what we realize is that, we love to go watch our kids play. That's our thing. It's like our kids play sports. My daughter's doing club volleyball, which is another story. And my son's playing basketball. My other son's starting baseball. And we're going to be really divided this whole time because there's going to be things that happen at the same time. So we're going to have to split. And I'm terrified that they're all three going to have something on the same day at the same time. It's like, oh, what do I do then? Because I can't be in two places. And I'm sure I'll have family members who do that, but that's not, my parents would go and they'd help out, but that's not the same. I know, my parents were at everything I did, and I don't want, who do I decide? Who doesn't get me there? No, that's terrifying to me. And I know it's silly, but that's one of the things that we're going through at this point.
I think it's reasonable because we all want to be the very best that we can be and provide our kids with the optimal experience of whatever it is that they're dealing with. The truth is we can't do that, and we can't be there all the time. And it's just time restrictions and the constraints of working and doing other things. It it becomes impossible, as you said, to be in two places at one time is not possible.
It's not.
So I'm personally, on a personal note, I'm working very hard on trying to be less of a performer. So, it's something that I've done since I was, I don't know how old I was, early teens, something like that. You get up in front of people and you put on a show of some sort, or you rely on somebody else to put on the main show, and you kind of try to stay in some type of a harmonizing place. And that becomes just another part of who you are. And growing up in the Church of Christ, we learned how to sing, and learning how to sing included being great harmonizers, because there are no musical instruments. So you only have the voices, and it's beautiful. But it also kind of teaches another side of that, maybe a performance mindset that works differently in everybody. But for me, when I was going into being a musician, I was like, oh yeah, this is totally natural. This is what we do all the time anyway. So anyway, my point is that this year, if there is such a thing as a resolution, one of the things that I'm working on is not just being the same person in front of my classes. That is, I think my students describe me as super outgoing, which is, not, I don't think that's who I am. I'm much more introverted and much more quiet, and like to be in little ambient.
It's funny because I would say in a social situation, yeah, but if there's a topic that you have passion about, you are not introverted. You're going to be the first one to say something or whatever's on your mind and articulate your opinion and stuff. So I think it depends. That would be your secondary personality or your secondary characteristics, is that, when it's something that you're passionate about, you are outgoing. You are, you have a lot to say about it, which is great. But you personally, which would be your primary traits, would say that, nope, that's not who I am, because in most situations, I don't act that way.
Right. And so trying to figure out whether or not that has a place in the future, meaning the primary thing where I'm not actually performing anymore. I think that part of my life, it's fair to say, is probably, if not completely finished, is certainly on its way out and has been for quite a while. And so I think that it becomes more and more important as we move into different seasons of our lives. And, certainly we're giving and devoting that much more attention and time to our children, that, I make sure that I'm recognizing, changes going on that might be taking and pulling stuff away from that. And for all of the time that we spend with our kids and with our spouses, we are also somehow, kind of can be pulled in multiple directions. You don't want that. And I don't want that. Mm-hmm. I want to have this singular presence. And so that's something that it's not that I haven't worked on in the past. I'm going to be more deliberate about it. Mm-hmm. And you're talking to somebody that never makes New Year's resolutions. I always thought they were just BS. Yeah. But it's true. This is something that's going to be a major priority, not just this year, but moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's I constantly want to reprioritize what's important to me. And I think that, I don't know, I guess the new year just kind of gives you a starting point and then you can, gauge the difference. And I think that's why people do resolutions. I don't know. And do people usually stick to them? I think it's 75% don't. So, I guess when it comes to like something that you choose to do, it has to just be that like choice. You have to choose. And if you choose it, then, you know, that's your choice and you're doing it and you're prioritizing it.
What you're saying, I think it's a great segue into what we want to visit about today, which is whether or not all things have a place in the future. What does and what doesn't have a place in the future, and how does one determine it? You know, how do people, whether it's on the larger macro level, something as large as a civilization or a culture, but on a smaller level, you know, people seem to want a fresh start every single year.
Yeah.
You know, and they believe that there is such a thing as a fresh start. I don't know that there really is, but sometimes it's nice to believe things that, you know, we just make up.
Yeah, I mean, just being in the social and behavioral sciences, we know that everything in the past definitely affects your future. So even, I don't know, maybe it's the idea of being aware of how that can affect the future, which would allow you to have the choice or change, maybe. I don't know, but it is, I mean, I don't think that you can just clean slate anything unless you like get a new identity and take off, you know, and leave everything behind. But I mean, that's not very likely. It's not very possible. So I don't know that. But then again, that new identity would definitely be influenced by what happened last time. So clean slates it's all relative.
Yeah, we were born and that was our opportunity at it. But then we also have all these influences at the very beginning that don't really,
right.
I mean, we didn't really have a choice in so many of those different things. Something we talk about at the college a lot is, you know, whether or not, you know, where people are coming from and their different places. I always love the fact that we have such a wide group of student ages.
Yeah, and so many different student experiences and background. Yeah, I think it lends to a richer education of life, not just, you know, the subject, but, you know, you get to hear experiences from people who have experienced it from a different point of view. For instance, you know, like we were talking about earlier, you know, the idea that some things have, you know, kind of like died out and we don't necessarily have those things as much anymore. Some people don't even know that they exist. And one of them that I talk about a lot in my class is the idea of a landline and a telephone. You know, that's the only way you communicated before. And when we got call waiting, that was huge. I don't even know, do they have call waiting on landlines? I have no idea what goes on with a landline anymore because we don't have it. And I don't know how many households really do anymore. I mean, and if they do they use it? And that's kind of, you know, it's one of those things that we thought, like during my time when I was a kid, the phone was it. Like you get another line in the house and it's like, oh my gosh, my brother can be on the phone and so can I. Like, oh, that's crazy. And I don't even know, like, I don't know the rules anymore with what goes on with landlines because it's kind of like that obsolete kind of thing that's kind of gone out. And now everybody has cell phones. Like the idea of long distance charging, remember that? Yeah. You can't call long distance, but now... Right. Does it matter?
No, that's a wonderful analogy. But I remember having a newfound sense of privacy. That was, I think, probably there are some roots there with regard to that, and not, you know, worrying about. Not that we were ever super worried about it, you know, but worried about people picking up the phone and talking, or you know, get off the phone.
Yeah,
remember that? I mean,
yes.
Those are things that we thought about a lot in the 1980s and early 1990s. And then we get the bag phones and the handhelds and Zach Morris, you know, cutting class and Saved by the Bell with using his own cell phones. And, you know, they end up looking like just absolutely massive phones. Satellite phones now, they look like satellite phones today.
And they were used to call people. Now most people don't even talk on the phone. I mean, think about the last conversation you really had on the phone. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often anymore. Now you text, you send videos and emojis, and you have group, you know, whatever it is, but there's no, like the advancement in communication has actually caused us to not communicate more. what? That seems so backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like things that are supposed to help it. Like that's the thing. Phone is for communication and getting information and sending information and talking. And yes, we get more information, but the idea of communication has completely, like we've lost it. I don't know. I don't think my kids barely ever talk on the phone to their friends at all. And like the other day, my son was trying to get a hold of his friend, and I said, just call him. And he was like, what? He's not answering his text. I said, call him. And he's like it was a big deal. He's not answering a snap. He's not, and I'm like, call, like you have the phone number, just call them. That way, you can find out what's going on. And people just don't call very often anymore, which, I mean, it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of sad because we don't have the communication we did before. Like you would have to articulate, like we've been talking about before, not later, that would make no sense, but we were talking about that before. And that's just something that kids are not taught as much. Like my husband will deliberately make our kids tell us about their day. Not just, it was good, I did it. Okay, well, what was good about it? Okay, I want you to sit and talk to me. Like, I need you to be able to communicate with people. Like, come in and tell a story. Come in and, tell us how you were feeling. Because if we don't do that, we're missing it all. I don't want an emoji for it. I need you to tell me. And I think that's something that we could be missing with this advancement in communication.
Certainly. And, there's clearly nothing new under the sun. There were probably people that sat around and did their version of a podcast, whatever that would be, just a regular conversation in their living room.
Sure. That
was not shareable to any type of internet or public forum that was large and great, or had the potential to be large and great, depending certainly with links and, all the different ways that we access conversations. But the way that information was transmitted changed dramatically in, the 15th century, with the printing press.
Absolutely.
And that led to all kinds of new innovations in, science and religion, and the way people were able to interpret. Increased literacy changed the face of the world. We shouldn't just talk about it as if it's all been good.
Right.
It has been good, but it was also challenging for folks living during that period of time, because that in itself drove a whole other idea of change. So the more, for example, the more ideas that get spread because more people are able to read does not mean that people are able to interpret equally.
Right.
The same text and the same conversations or the same, books of the Bible.
Right.
It sounds wrong to say it to some extent. On the other hand, that's the way we read. I mean, if I were a writer and wrote 20 books, I think that I would probably read fiction differently than I do.
Right. And I mean, I think that you even brought up a great point is, the more people know, the more that it can cause conflict, the more they do know. So sometimes that becomes a lot more. We've talked about this before, the idea that, maybe the reason we do have higher anxiety is because we are getting so much more information that it's almost overwhelming and we have to process. But if we didn't have, the printing press, we didn't have this, the only people that we could or would worry about was our immediate family, our village, our environment, the city that we're in. And that's where our priorities were, instead of, thinking about Susie in Atlanta and what she ate for breakfast and how skinny she is, whatever it happens to be. Right. And I don't know. I mean, at the same time, is it good to know that, what's going on in Europe? Like, we need to know what's going on over there. Do we? Don't we? I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. It's one of those give and take things. Like, I don't know if it's actually a better thing. You see all these apocalyptic movies. Is that apocalyptic?
Yeah, apocalyptic.
It sounded wrong. Movies where, all of a sudden communications shut down. And what do people worry about? Just surviving. And, they're not worried about, do I have the right shoes? Am I associated with the best political party? We're not, it's like to that point, it's like, I don't care. I just need to live, and I need to take care of my kids, and I need to make sure they're okay and that they're happy, and that, and it's like, I don't know, it's a give and take on, you want to have all the information. You want it, and you want people to know, but at the same time, how important is it really?
Yeah. Do we have the discipline to actually have and have good ownership over that information? Certainly, it's something I think a great deal about, particularly when there's hurricanes in parts of the world, or tsunamis. I feel a great amount of and a great depth of empathy and concern for anybody who's suffering. By the same token, there's only so much, as we discussed. Even I think a couple of episodes ago, and there's only so much we have to give outside of our immediate surroundings, and what's the greater good there. So yeah, I mean, so we're not talking about anything that's new, and when we say something along the lines of it may not have a place in the future, we're not talking about people maybe not having a place in the future or things like that, but certainly cultures. I'm rereading S.C. Gwynn's wonderful book about the Comanche and Empire of the Summer Moon. And it's fantastic. Of course, if you haven't read that book, please pick it up. Major plug there, just for the simple fact that it has, there's so many different things in there about the clash of what we might consider today be a clash of civilizations. I think that all of the relevant and pertinent plots and maybe significant theses that were originally in the Samuel Huntington book on the clash of civilizations are all present there in the United States of America meeting, and the Texans meeting up for the first time with the empire of the Comanches. And people generally don't associate Comanches with having an empire or having an imperial stance on things, but they did. Yeah.
I mean, well, it's just, I think that this is the clash of cultures, or clash of, it's going to be something that we could write about at every, every stage of any development of a society, of a culture, of the world, because there's going to be that constant, clashing of, the old versus the new, the, what was done before, what should be done now. Is it always better? And that's, we always talk about advancement being like, oh, we need to advance. We constantly need to advance. That's the purpose of education. And but is it always the best? Is it always the best to have that full on advancement? We often think things are very it's not right if the old ways, if somebody's doing the old ways now. For instance, Yellowstone. I know that we've talked about that before, but when Casey, his character, decides to do an old tradition with the Indian ways to kind of figure out what's bugging him, what's going on in his life, where he sees himself going. Okay, now this would be seen as an old way to do something, but it isn't in the present. And I think it really the old ways, I guess is the old ways really are dependent upon your environment and the way things are done. Some people that is ridiculous. Why would you do that? There's no reason. And that should be something that is no longer in the future. But, I think that when we talk about people and the ethnicities and hanging on to their culture and the way that they used to do things and a way that, is significant to this certain culture and ethnicity, and they shouldn't become American. That's what a lot of people, the Americanized. You are no longer doing what you did before. I think that if we hold on to those traditions, I think that it kind of keeps you, afoot with the way people used to do it. Is it bad? That's a great question.
There's clearly a lot there. We have in our own part of the woods, neck of the woods in Amarillo, we have our own history with that. And that's something that S.C. Gwynn goes into a great deal, and a great amount of discussion takes place about all the things that took place in the Llano Estacado and all of the conflict that was there, pursuant to the aim of, in the beginning, trying to figure out how to live in some type of harmony, and then eventually, that giving way to, okay, we're going to have to go full force here because there seems to be some type of a disconnect going on here, and it's been, it took 50 years to get there, if not longer, with the U.S. government. But that was something that had been going on since the Spanish arrived, and prior. Even during all of those different periods of time, there was a tremendous amount of infighting between and different hierarchical structures of those nations. And I thought that this is such an important topic to discuss. Can I give another example?
Sure.
This is another one from post-Civil War America, that in Missouri, that state that seemed to create so many problems as to whether or not it was going to be a free state or a slave state prior to the Civil War. After the Civil War, becomes a place where, and particularly in areas like all civilizations always kind of build themselves around water. And there was a group of individuals, of radical Republicans, that came and settled this area not too far from Table Rock Lake in southern Missouri. Now, they had a town called Radical, and they named it Radical, obviously, because radical Republicans. Mm-hmm. So, today, over a period of time, that town was, originally it was something that people went through, and there were all these little river systems around it. Lake Table Rock wasn't there. It didn't exist until a certain point in time, I think 1950s, when there was a dam that was built there. The Army Corps of Engineers filled up this valley and channelized areas with water, and moved all this water around so that it could support larger civilization. And what's strange about that is that even today, if you are out fishing on that, so there's a bridge that goes over that bridge, the bridge that goes over that old village, and then now there's another bridge that goes above the other bridge. And when you really start thinking about it in any significant depth, you start to realize that, even if today, if you were to go use your fish finder and fly over this area, you would see what we would consider to be the remnants of that old town. If someone was to try or want to, and there are lots of people that do, and lots of people that write histories on this place, because it is such an interesting little niche of, it does provide an example of the larger question of what does it, people lived there every single day. They had routines there. They raised their kids there. They buried their dead there. They loved people deeply. They pursued dreams deeply. They had passion. They had the will to live. They had all the things that we have today, because human beings I don't believe in human progress. Yeah. I know that this is maybe a dark topic. I don't think so. I just think it is just a topic, but human progress doesn't really happen. Technological progress, sure, but human progress, not so much. Right. So we can have all the policies we want and change as much as we want, but people are people.
Right.
And if you know people, then if today, then you know them historically, and you know them then. That will always connect us. So knowing that about Radical, Missouri, the old town, that they built, they spent their entire lives trying to build something that had no place in the future.
You know, as you talk about that, my parents have a ranch, and they have creek beds. Let me say, they have creek beds that there's pictures from before they dammed it up in Dalhart of this creek. And there were families and people come from everywhere to picnic along that creek. They would have big parties, and now you go and, I mean, is it still really pretty and neat? But good gosh, every time we're there, I'm like, I can't imagine how gorgeous this would have been if that water was flowing. I mean, there's nothing. The trees are starting to fall because there's no water, and they're massive trees. Like if we were to stand, it would probably take about 5 of us holding hands to get around these trees, the tree trunk. I mean, they are massive trees, but because the water's dammed up, we're losing those trees now. That civilization that used to run through there is gone. Like that, something that I don't even, probably there's nobody alive still that could remember, sitting there on that creek bed, having that picnic. But at that time, that was their reality. That's what they did. That's what was happening. That's how they would remember their past. And now it's gone. Not only that, we had the train used to run on there. Now it's a mile off, but I mean, it used to run through our land, and you can see the mound where it used to be. And there's something that we call Signature Rock, where people would sit and wait for the train. And it was this rock place that they could sit and get some shade. And people have carved things in there. It's like 1907, 18. I mean, it's really cool how they did. I don't know how they did it. Like, it's really good. But the fact that Signature Rock used to be right by the train, that train's completely gone. Remnants, you can kind of see where the mound used to be, but it's gone. And I, just because of my experience on that land, I know of these multiple things that used to be there that will never be again. It makes you wonder, like, how many other places did this happen? We constantly do archaeology, trying to look for these other places and civilizations, but how many of them were washed away and we don't ever know? Things that won't be there now. And because usually advancement, like there was a reason why they dammed that up, right? So they could get water to but what about the places that were left behind?
Yeah. And what are we to make of, Las Vegas, Nevada? And I love Vegas. Don't get me wrong. Particularly around Christmas time. And you'll never hear me say this again. I hope fewer people ever hear me say this on this podcast, which is that Christmas time is the best, in my opinion, best time to visit Las Vegas. There's a little bit fewer people there. They've got all the different the water shows at the Bellagio. Those are all choreographed to different Christmas music. It's a lot of fun to be there during that time because it's not super cold or anything like that. But when Vegas came into being, there was a need for power, and as they were, and prior to that, before settling all of that stuff, the Hoover Dam was built specifically and constructed not just as a tool of the Great Depression and an instrument of trying to employ people who were out of work, but also provide power and means for people to live out their daily lives in what they considered to be a modern world in a modern context. So they were making progress, and in their mind, right? And maybe not every single person was thinking about that, because surely we don't go around thinking, oh, this is more modern than this, therefore
Right.
it's better. I don't think that we work that way. Maybe it's more obvious in certain things like movies and CGI.
Yeah.
You know, the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park still to me look very real, the original. But we also might consider something like a dam being built that diverts the Colorado River, and little do we know later that in 100 years later, almost 100 years, that the water itself is going to become a major freshwater issue for us in the 21st century. So, I mean, is it everything comes down to costs and benefits, and you know, the fact that we have a scarcity of resources and only so much attention to pay to things, which is, you know, why, once again, that scarcity of time and scarcity of resources comes really into focus when people have children, which may be a really important reason to have children. Otherwise, we might find out that we're spending our lives, you know, doing something that has, you know, less value. On the other hand, it's really good to have people looking out for the really long-term things, like the Elon Musks and of the world, who, by the way, has recently been making lots of hay for making statements about population decline in the world. He's like, we are digging our own grave by not having kids. Yeah. And he sees it, I mean, as a kind of a devolution of civilization.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just, like, do you have any idea where you would be if you didn't have kids? You know, like if you did something completely different, you know, it's like the priorities, school, well, school was one at one point, but that's the thing, is like you have priorities, and when family becomes that priority, it changes your outlook completely. You know, what's important, the resources, right? All of a sudden now we're worried about it. But if you're single and you don't have kids, like, it's like, we're not thinking about that. All I need to do is take about care of myself. And I'm not totally 100% against being selfish, because yes, you do need to have some selfish tendencies. But at the same time, if all you worry about is you and do whatever you want, then, you know, that's not necessarily a good practice for any culture or any society to be successful. You know, there's always got to be a connection to somebody else, so that, you know, when things come down, you know, you do have some, you know, for them to survive as well. And I think that not having kids, not getting married, not doing the things that we traditionally would have done, which is like, that was like, I love it. His Levine said that in order to be an adult male, these are the steps you have to take. Number 1, leave the house. Number 2, enter the adult world. Number 3, settle down. And number 4, be your own man. Okay, that was what, if you didn't do that, you're not an adult. Okay, so we have so many people now who are, you know, well into their 30s still living with their parents. According to Levine, you are not a man. You have not grown up. If you don't have your own house, you're just renting, not a man. If you don't have kids, you haven't settled down, not a man. And that was just an old way of thinking. But at the same time, it's like, is that such a bad, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, it's so old, but is it really such a bad thing? You know, having to settle down and having the, you know, where you're responsible for other people, not just yourself, where you do have your priorities. You've got to do something. You can't just float through a bunch of stuff. But
sure. Well, how can you truly value? It's much more difficult to value the future with the same value that you might value the present and the past, if the investment that you have in it isn't a whole investment, and it's just about making sure I live as long as I possibly can. You know, there's a time, and surely that's important, to have longevity. We all try to do, hopefully we all try to do things that are healthy for us. We just passed the new year. My guess is that I think you said around 75%, an approximation. People probably don't even make it past the first month,
No.
But I mean, they're trying, they want to, they might have an aspiration to, even if it's fleeting, even if it's non-committal, that doesn't mean that they don't want that for themselves and for their families. Maybe they have all kinds of other reasons. And I would love to hear all the different types of responses that we could get on that issue.
Yeah.
But I mean, once we get into the investments that we have on the kids, all of that changes so dramatically, mainly because we're thinking about what kind of a world we want them to have, the opportunities that we had when we were growing up. Now, I mean, that's not to say that the world's going to look very different.
Absolutely.
But humans don't change.
No. And that's what we were also talking about this, but it's the idea that the older generation says, oh, you have it so much easier. We say it about our kids. We do, it's constantly like, oh, this generation, this. And the truth is there's a lot more similarities than there are differences between the generations. It does look different. That's the point. It's like things advance, so it just looks different. I don't think it's easier for our kids. It's just different. I think that they have to navigate different situations that we didn't ever have to do. I joke and laugh, and also very serious, that I am so glad that we did not have Facebook while I was in high school. And we didn't take pictures of everything, and we think, oh, what idiots our kids are for putting, stuff on Facebook. Like, why would you post that? But that's just their generation. That's like their thing. And they have to learn from that. We did stupid stuff. Like our parents probably like, why would you write that down? Or why would you say that, on the telephone? And, it's kind of that same situation where we, that was our social media. That's their social media. Whatever, the thing that we just can't imagine that they would do stuff on because we didn't have it. Like my parents, I can't believe you said that on the phone. Okay. Well, we were going through all of these pictures of old pictures. They were amazing. But one of them, my mom, she's gorgeous mom. And on the back, she had written something really sweet and kind of funny and a little I don't even know, what, Mom, to my dad, because he's Indian, right? And so she put, be a good big chief, not little, big chief, and I'll see you next week on the back of her picture. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I can't believe you wrote that. And she's like, but at the time, if I said that to somebody on the phone, she'd be, I can't believe you said that to their face. It's just a different way. So it's not that different. It's just different. If that makes any sense.
No, we could say the same things, just say them with different words. And what is in is like fashion, right? What's in one day is out the next, and then it comes back in again. And I don't know how long, we are going to go. It seems like things are speeding up rather than slowing down, and we'll probably never go back to a slower time. When we say slower, by the way, just talking about, as we've mentioned before, being fans of the show Naked and Afraid, gives one perspective with regard to, what life may have looked like 60,000 years ago or 70 or 80,000 years ago. And in time immemorial prior, we just go day to day looking for the right meal, a meal, water,
and shelter.
Yeah. It's like, that's it. Those are that life, in other words, seems rather brutish. And what is it? I'm accidentally quoting Thomas Hobbes, by the way. It's an accident, but brutish and short, as he said. And
trivial. There's a lot of stuff that we worry about. And it's like, why are you worried about that?
That's how we survive today.
It is. I have this whole lesson in my class on stress, and constantly, we've talked about this before. It boils down to you're the one who stresses you out. You're the one who makes you sick. And but why? Like, why are you worried about that? And, if we simplify and really just look at our priorities, things are less stressful. Like, there's no reason. This morning, I don't even know where it came from, but I randomly post something on Facebook, and it was a joke. Like, it wasn't, like, I didn't think it was serious. It was one of those, and I put a little laughy face, right? So I had a girl that I went to high school with and I haven't seen her. She lives up north somewhere now, and she responded like pretty hateful. And I was like, wait, I realized it was a joke. Like, I responded to her, like, I realized it was a joke. I kind of thought it was funny because all this stuff has been posted. And then I had a student of mine who, the girl came back and said some nasty stuff, and he totally jumped to my, to respond to that. Like, you don't know where, and the truth is, you know what? Like, why? I was going to get back on and be like, well, you don't know me anymore. You knew me in high school. But I was like, what is the point? And that's kind of like this idea is like, I feel like social media, I feel like some of the advancements of having all this information has led us to worry about things that that's a lot of wasted energy. I am too busy driving my kids around to worry about what somebody I knew from high school we had classes together, but I don't know that we really knew each other. They knew who they thought I was, right? And I know who I thought they were, kind of idea. But, and I was like, there's just no point. There's just no point to this. And that's kind of where there are some things that I think that we need to revisit that I think have gone away. Kind of like the idea where I haven't heard anybody say this in a long time, except for me. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Like, where did that go?
Right. How about sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That has gone away. And I'm as a psychologist and as, looking at I understand, but that words, that we do with our mental capacity. And I understand that, verbal abuse is real, 100. But at the same time, I am so thankful that my parents built so much confidence in me that if somebody was saying awful things about me, I shrugged it off like, you don't know me kind of thing. Like you're not my friend. If you're going to say horrible things about me, you're not my friend. And I'm just going to not hang out with you. I'm not going to deal with you if that's how you want to treat me. Where did that go? Right? That didn't happen anymore. Like, if somebody says something bad, it's like, and that I want to be in. Why? Don't be in their circle. I tell my daughter all the time, and it is definite switch because I'm trying to instill that same kind of confidence in her. However, society has made it to where everybody should be friends. Everybody should like you. No, they aren't. You're not going to be friends with everybody, and that's okay. Now, does that mean you treat people like crap? Absolutely not. However, you don't have to take value in what everybody says to you. People, you can hate me. Okay, I don't know you. That's okay. Just like this situation. I was about to get into that, but I don't even know. I don't really know her anymore. She does. I know. And as I sit there thinking about what she sent me, I'm like, it made me laugh because I was like, she don't even know me. Why would you say horrible things like that? You don't even know who I am. But we do. Like, that's what happens, right? We hear people say stuff. And I just think that we need to go back to the idea. Sticks and stones don't break my bones. Will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I'm rubber, you're glue, right? Whatever. And then the whole idea too, that you treat people the way you want to be treated. Where did that go? Because it doesn't happen. So there are some things I feel like we've left it. Okay. So what have we left it for? Have we left it for something better? Have we left it for the sake of conversation, anytime we leave something behind, obviously we move to a new frontier. We're on some new terrain, right? And it's new and it's fresh and it feels new to us. But somebody's been living there, surely, and they could probably report back that it's not as so great over there either.
Yeah,
right.
I think what I think we left it for is that you need to talk. You need to tell us how you feel, and you need to get yes, to the people who are important to you, and not everybody else.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I get it. I do. I get it to a point. The idea of a safe space, a place where you can talk. But that's not going to be everywhere. And that's okay. You know where your safe place or safe space should be? In your home, where you have your priority, in your family. I would not go to a random place that I don't even know everybody who's there to have a safe place. Why would that be your safe space? If you need a safe, go home. Go to the people who love you, your priority, your circle. And I 100% am not like putting mental health out of it, because that is there. But at the same time, I think that we've had such a rise in mental health because we are so focused on everybody else. Stop.
So the comparisons that we draw as a result of social media, right? I mean, once again, not to get into the whole this black hole again, but I mean, what is the purpose of social media other than to compare and communicate? Mm-hmm. We make comparisons, we communicate with each other, but I mean, I don't know what the future of that is.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, maybe we've already reached its. I fear, you know, to some extent, what more it might have to offer.
I don't know. That's the thing, is like, but we never thought that would happen, right? I mean, I don't know. This idea of social never was something that I was like, oh, that's what's going to happen next. But it did. And I don't know. I just think that advancement is great. I think that the more you learn in education is amazing. However, I also believe that your past and the history has a very important part in the way you do things. We as a society have been here in a culture for a reason, because we're successful. So I don't know why we always need to think of ways to change it. I did a really cool project in my sociology class where they got to develop their own community. And we had communities that were very advanced and ones that live underwater. And I mean, all of these things. And then I had like random, my faculty and my colleagues sent me reasons of why cultures or communities have failed. And then I just wrote them on a piece of paper, put them in a jar, and then I just randomly drew them out. And if I drew something out that canceled your community, you're dead. Like, that's it. Your community's gone. And the community or the culture that was last to go out was the one that is just like a normal neighborhood. That's what they said. They were like, we thought that ours was going to go first because we didn't really venture out and say that we are run by AI, or that we were going to be nomadic and move everywhere, or that we're going to live under the water. We just said we're going to have a community that has the police, that has, everything that we would have in a community. And they won because they were resistant to the things that killed other communities. So I don't know that advancement is always the way to go.
It's a really good point. And I remember Kevin Costner's character in Yellowstone in a couple of episodes prior to the season finale. You know, he made this comment to one of the individuals who was protesting. I don't know, one of the many issues that people protest about, and I can understand there's always a legitimate reason to protest. We have a right to do it under the First Amendment. And by the way, a moment ago you said, why don't people feel why can't their safe space be in their homes? That's something that I tried and true believe in, predominantly because that's where we are meant to be the most protected is in our home. All law speaks to this, going back to Magna Carta, right? And that seems to be the place where folks have routinely and always felt like that is a constitutionally protected area.
Yeah.
If I'm going to say it, I can say it in my own home and feel
And I mean, of course, there are, different circumstances. Like
Sure.
if you have a horrible, awful home, then that's not going to be it. But
a doctor's office.
Right. In the, I guess the biggest percentage, this should be your safe place. And I understand that it's not. And if it's not, then you need to change your situation.
Right. And there's always going to be somebody that's going to draw an exception and they'll listen to this podcast and say, oh, they're not thinking about this, but this situation. Well, there's always one of those situations.
Absolutely.
Somebody's going to go to space someday and there's not going to feel safe. There's not going to be a spot. So they're going to have to create another space.
In space. Yeah.
Another space within space on the shuttle or whatever it is that we're on.
Correct.
And anyway, Kevin Costner's character says to this individual, she's disgusted with how, people are raising, I believe it's cattle at that time, and how the way that the cattle are being treated, and pretty much all the things that Joaquin Phoenix said at the Academy Awards a couple of years ago. But he said, it's because people stopped living with the land and started living on it. Mm-hmm. And I thought that there was a lot of wisdom in that short space of words that, when we stop living alongside things, we really do stop valuing it as something that can provide something for us. And I think that that's incredibly important, not just historically, but maybe as we go from day to day, that, we live next to each other. We don't live for other people, and
they don't live for us.
And they don't live for us. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be a healthy respect. I think the rattlesnake serves this purpose for us in the West Texas and the High Plains. That it's good to have a healthy respect for the land where you are. That the idea that you could step in the wrong place or decide you were gonna sit on the wrong rock could end in death.
Correct.
I think that is a valuable and unfortunately diminished respect that we may have today that leads us to all kinds of other conclusions that are probably not exactly accurate. And of course, people, we can all benefit from listening to each other and living with each other, and not, I don't want to say living on each other,
you get it.
Living with each other, but not living, for each other.
Right.
And I think that's one of the civics that we're trying to communicate, that, with the continued resistance. You mentioned property ownership a moment ago, and all of the different aspects and of life and understanding that come along with property ownership, as you mentioned,
right?
What it meant to be a man in older days, and maybe that has changed some.
Sure.
Maybe though it has to do with values, and maybe that was something that he was identifying, was that your values change when this starts to happen.
Right.
When this happens, your values begin to change. When you have children, you look at the future differently. You look at the past differently. You look at your parents differently.
Yep.
Your aunts and uncles take on different meaning. Your cousins, your brothers and sisters, everything changes. When you own your own property, the respect that you have for it changes. So does your perspective on taxation and what you want money to go towards. And it's not all the same, certainly not, but the respect that you gain from it because it's yours.
Right. You have a priority. You have a stake in it.
Right.
Skin in the game.
Exactly. Skin in the game is the right way to put it. So anyway, it was great to be back with you again this morning.
It was fun. I'm glad we got to do this again. Hopefully we'll be doing it more often. Like we'll get to do another show soon.
I hope so too. And I hope everybody is having a wonderful new year. Gosh,
here we are, 2022.
Safe. Yep. Stay healthy, stay safe. I guess don't sit on the wrong rock.
That's a good one.
But
Yeah.
I hope all of y'all have a wonderful new year and that you're able to stay true to your, I don't know, whatever it is that
Your
you,
priority?
yeah, whatever it is
Your
that you came up
resolution.
with this year for your resolution. I do. If it's serious, as in, you don't want to have another heart attack, I truly wish
Yeah,
that, the
that
best.
is, yes, absolutely.
But if it's something along the lines of, I don't know, wanting to, I don't know. I better not
Whatever's
say
important to you,
anything.
good
This is
luck.
a good time for me to be quiet. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I
Yes.
can't wait to talk to y'all again.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.